Hi, it's Carolyn. I'm here to help you learn how to bake and decorate amazing cakes, and in this video I'm going to give you 10 reasons why cake decorating is a lot harder than you think. And it's so annoying when people say it's just flour and sugar and eggs and expect your cakes to be $5 because it's so easy to make. I don't know about you, I used to watch videos and see people with their cute little aprons on and their smiles and their icing cakes, and they're so happy, and meanwhile I'm in my kitchen, I'm crying, I'm stressed out, nothing is going right. And I thought that there was something wrong with me, but it is all part of the process. And I know I say this in a lot of my videos, but I have been doing this for over 20 years now, and I still get frustrated. I run into some issues with my cakes, but at least now I know how to handle it. So the reason that making cakes is hard is that there are a lot of different skill sets that you have to master so you're able to produce a superior product. So like I said, I have 10 reasons why cake decorating is a lot harder than you think, and let's start with number 1. The first thing you need to master is how to bake your cakes properly. I have tons of videos showing you how I bake my cakes that will be linked below. But there are so many issues that could happen while baking your cakes. They could collapse in the middle, they could shrink, they could be too dense, they could be too dry, and there's a learning curve that comes along with baking cakes. The technique that I use now for baking is very different than when I first started, and that is because I got some feedback from people telling me that my cake was too dry. And I always welcome any feedback, positive or negative, because the negative feedback helps you improve. But most important, you want your cake to be the right texture and moist enough. You don't want it to be dry. I always bake my cakes, let them cool about 5 minutes, then wrap them up in plastic wrap and freeze them, and it really helps to seal in the moisture. And I did not do that when I first started. So before you start decorating your cakes, you want to make sure that you perfect those recipes. And I do have recipe ebooks available. I have my scratch pound cake recipe ebook and my best doctored cake mix recipes. And those will be linked in the description. On to number 2. And that is perfecting the art of filling your cakes. Now filling, people get weird with filling. It's not like filling like a jelly donut. It's icing between the cake layers. And I don't know why I have to explain that so many times, but people go crazy with the word filling. But anyway, there are a couple different ways to fill your cakes. The main issue that people have when filling their cakes is that the filling starts to bulge out the sides of the cake, and then you can kind of see it after you ice your cakes. And there are ways to prevent this that I go over in my videos. Number 1, you want to use a stiffened icing dam. And number 2, you want to make sure you crumb coat your cake and refrigerate it before you add the final coat, which will help hide those bulges. And number 3, the most important part of filling your cakes is allowing time for them to settle. Because when you fill your cakes, you need to give it time for those layers, for gravity to work, and those layers to start settling, which is naturally going to push that filling out of the sides a little bit. And what I like to do is after the cake settles, I remove the plastic wrap and I take a spatula and scrape off that excess icing that's bulging out of the sides before I add my crumb coat, which really does help hide those bulges. On to the third reason why cake decorating is a lot harder than you think. And that is the buttercream. You need to, like I said before with the baking, you need to perfect a buttercream recipe. And I personally only work with American buttercream. I've been doing it since the days of yore, since I first started. I just love American buttercream. It's stable, it can withstand the heat. I know some people don't like it because it's too sweet. I do have a video showing you how to make it less sweet, but I get the best result from using American buttercream. It's smooth, it holds its shape, it doesn't fall apart on me. And I do have a recipe ebook with all of my icing and filling recipes, and I will link that below. But you don't have to use American buttercream like I do. If you like a meringue buttercream or a whipped buttercream, whatever you want to use, you want to make sure that you perfect that recipe and learn how to work with it. On to number 4. You need to perfect the art of icing a smooth buttercream cake. And here is where I give big ups to my girl, Sharon Zambito. She is my mentor. I found her about 22 years ago or whatnot. And she had a DVD called Perfecting the Art of Buttercream. And I learned how to ice a cake, and I was so excited because you can run into issues when you're icing your cakes. You can get big blowouts on the side, which is a big air pocket that forms behind your icing. And then you have to pop that bubble. It's just super annoying. And also you want to learn how to get the icing really smooth so there's no air bubbles in it, and also how to get really sharp edges. So it does take a little bit of practice, but that is something that I really honed in on and wanted to learn how to do. I can ice my cakes super smooth. Most people mistake it for fondant because it looks flawless. And again, I do have a video showing you how I do that, and that will be linked below. The fifth reason why cake decorating is a lot harder than you think is you have to learn how to work with fondant. And I personally only work with marshmallow fondant. I make my own. I do not like working with store-bought fondant. Store-bought fondant gets elephant skin, like little wrinkles in it. It cracks easily. It doesn't set hard like marshmallow fondant does when you add the Tylose powder. I just don't like it. Some people have a lot of success working with store-bought fondant. I prefer to make it myself, and I have such good results from doing it. I have a video showing you how I make marshmallow fondant and how to deal with the issues that arise while working with fondant, and those will be linked in the description. But working with fondant is all about getting it to the correct consistency. And when you make marshmallow fondant, you have to give it time to settle. I don't use it the same day that I make it. I usually make it one day, wrap it in plastic wrap, store it in a plastic container, and then I will start to work with it the following day. And even at that, you have to work with it to get it to the right consistency before you cover a cake with it, before you cut decorations. I always add Tylose powder, Gum-Tex powder, CMC powder. I add that. They're all basically the same thing. I add it to my marshmallow fondant. It helps the fondant become stretchy. It won't have little pock marks in it. It's not going to break or fall apart on you. It's not going to be too dry. And I have a video showing you how to get your fondant to the correct consistency. That will be linked below. But also, if you're covering a cake with fondant versus making decorations that need to stand up on their own on the top of the cake, there's a difference in the amount of Tylose powder that you need to add to the fondant so it can set up harder. And I do have a video where I talk about my tips for Tylose, and that will be linked below. But it's very important to learn how to get your fondant to the correct consistency. It'll drive you insane when your fondant doesn't work, when you're trying to cut letters out of it and it's dragging and it's too soft. So perfecting your fondant is very important to a successful cake decorating business. On to number 6. You need to learn how to properly stack and support a cake. I remember, and I don't even think I have a picture of this cake, but when I first started, I didn't know that you had to dowel the cake down through the cake into the cake drum, and I just put 2 tiers on top of each other and it was sliding all over the cake board. So learning how to stack a cake, you have to put supports in the bottom tiers to support the upper tiers. You have to have cardboard circles underneath each tier so they can rest on the supports, and you have to dowel it. And most importantly, it has to be level. And I have a video where I go into detail on how I stack cakes, and that will be linked below. On to number 7. And this may not pertain to everybody, but that is learning how to work with refrigerated cakes. And I have refrigerated my cakes since I first started, and there were all of these rules, stupid rules that said you can't refrigerate cakes, you can't refrigerate fondant, you can't refrigerate edible images. Why is that so hard to say? But I literally put buttercream cakes, fondant covered cakes, fondant decorations, edible, my fingers are cracking, edible image decorations. All of my cakes go into my refrigerator. What's most important is that you learn how to work with refrigerated cakes. It's very important to have air conditioning in your home and in your car if you are working with refrigerated cakes. If you don't have access to air conditioning in your home or your car, I really wouldn't recommend refrigerating your cakes, because if you take your cake out of the refrigerator and bring it into a warm room, condensation is going to form on your cake and it's going to ruin it. So I do have videos where I talk about refrigerating your cakes, and it's all about keeping the environment as cold as possible. I literally wear sweatshirts and jackets in the summer when I'm in my house or delivering the cakes so the cake can stay as cold as possible and I can reduce the chances of condensation forming on the cake. The 8th reason why cake decorating is a lot harder than you think is the decorating aspect of it. Number 1, you need to learn how to come up with creative designs. And I'm trying to think of a way to relay this information to you guys, because I have so many people asking me how I come up with my cake designs. So I'm trying to come up with some kind of like PDF or course or something, and it's all in my head. I need to get it down on paper. But if you guys would like me to do something like that, please let me know in the comments. But not only do you need to learn how to design your cakes, you need to learn how to make the decorations nice and clean and neat. If it's a topper, it needs to look pretty from the front and the back. Your cuts have to be crisp, and that goes back to getting your fondant to the correct consistency. And you want to make sure that your decorations stay in place. A lot of times, people don't know how to anchor the decorations to the cake, so they end up sliding down the cake or falling off. And I do have a video showing you how I attach decorations to my cakes, and that will be linked below. And I think it's important when you're decorating cakes not to just always copy someone else's design. You want to have your own style that you'll be known for. A lot of people tell me that they can look at a cake and know that it's mine before they see the little watermark, because I have a little style and a way that I decorate my cakes. And instead of copying other cakes exactly, just use those cakes as inspiration and try to come up with a design on your own. On to number 9. And that is dealing with the cake delivery or the pickup. Now, I send a little information sheet out to all of my customers when they come pick up cakes, because you need to know how to drive with a cake, especially in the warmer months. Like I said, the air conditioning needs to be on in the car. The cake needs to be on a flat surface. If you put it on a seat, seats have slants to them, so you need to prop up that back section with a towel or an umbrella or something that can make the cake sit level. The cakes don't always fit on the floor in front of the seat. The back of the car, like I always say, the back of an SUV is ideal for traveling with cakes. I would much rather drive it myself because I know how to drive with cakes, and I have a video where I give some cake delivery tips, and that will be linked below. But you need to learn how to properly drive with a cake, because getting it to the venue in one piece is one of the most important aspects of cake decorating. On to the 10th reason why cake decorating is a lot harder than you think. And that is, you need to learn the business side of cake decorating if you're not just doing this as a hobby. So I just kind of came up with a system on my own, and I have videos where I talk about my cake business paperwork and the business side of cake decorating, and those will be linked in the description. But you need to learn how to properly keep track of orders so you don't forget them, because you don't want someone knocking on the door to pick up a cake that you didn't even make because you forgot. And you also need to learn how to keep track of your records for tax purposes, your sales and your deductions and your mileage and all of the other deductions that you can take. And then in this age of social media, you need to make sure that you are posting on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatnot, to promote yourself. And also, one of the most important things is learning how to deal with customers. When you run a business, you need to learn how to deal with the public, and you can't take everything so personal. And I have tons of videos where I talk about working with customers and my customer nightmare stories and good stories and why I love my customers, so they will all be linked below. So there you go. Those are my 10 reasons why cake decorating is a lot harder than you think. And I just want to give you guys a little pep talk here, because I know that you can watch videos, like I said in the beginning, of these people who look all perfect and they're smiling and they're making their cakes and everything always turns out for them. Just know that this is a process. You are not going to get everything right the first time, and that is okay. I have learned way more from the mistakes that I've made while making my cakes than I have from my successes. Because when the cakes don't turn out the way that I want them to, at least I know what to do and what not to do the next time to make it better. And just to let you know, my cakes did not always look like this. When I first started making cakes, I was a beginner just like anyone else, and I have a video showing you a lot of my cakes in the beginning, and that will be linked below. But I had to go through the whole process of mastering all of these 10 aspects of cake decorating to get my cakes to another level. My icing used to not be sharp. I didn't know how to work with fondant. It used to be sloppy. I wasn't good at coming up with design, so everything kind of looked a little plain. I've had cakes fall apart. I've had customers complain that the cake was too dry. I've put the wrong name on the cake. I've had icing blowouts and bulges. And because these things happened to me, I was able to become better because of it. So I think that's it. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them below. And just a reminder, I have a Cake Academy membership program where I can help you elevate your cakes to the next level. There are 3 tiers to this program, and the base tier is called the Cake Pop tier. And in that tier, you can support me monthly and get discounts on those ebooks that I mentioned, along with getting early access to YouTube content and access to exclusive video content that I post that's not on any social media. And then the top 2 tiers have all of that plus access to my exclusive Facebook group, and in that group I go live. We do cake critiques, we talk about pricing, I've done buttercream tutorials and fondant tutorials. I post all of the pictures of the cakes that I made along with how much I charged, and we are having so much fun in this group. I would love to have you aboard. That information is listed below. Please like this video if you liked it, and if you're enjoying my tutorials, I would be so grateful if you could buy me a coffee. My link is down below. And I would love it if you would keep in touch on socials, and you could check out my website. And if you want to stick around so you can watch this video next, and hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. And remember, it's cake. Have fun. I will see you on the next one. Bye.